Today we're joined by none other than Desi Edmunds. Top shot, top coach, and all-round clay-breaking machine.
Honey, baby!
And we're gonna cover nearly everything you need to know about sporting clays.
Yes, we're trying to get that shot out in front of the target, and the target runs into that line of pellets.
From basic safety on the course,
You don't want to be loading the gun, mounting the gun, doing anything else unless you are standing in this shooting position.
to how to behave at your first ever tournament. Whether you're just starting on your journey or well on your way to the podium, there's gonna be something here for you. Desi, today we are going to shoot a round of sporting clays together.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm going to pretend I know nothing, which won't be too difficult.
Okay.
And we're going to talk through the basics of sporting clays, the rules, safety, what the different targets are, and just going to take all of your knowledge and share it with the world.
Awesome. I think for beginners, there's some, good tips and tricks that'll just help you feel more comfortable when you get on the course, so you kind of have a operating procedure and you can focus on the targets and have more fun.
It's been a while since we ever did our first sporting clays round, but
Yeah.
I do still remember the anxiety.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of it's, assumptions on an experienced shooter's part that, coming into a beginner, we just simply don't know the lingo. We don't know a lot of the things that we kind of, assume, or take for granted that we know now. And it can cause a little bit of anxiety, and we want people to feel welcome and make sure they're comfortable when they get out on the clays course.
All right. Yeah. Enjoy, guys. Let's go.
Here we go.
I guess before we start, this is a clay pigeon. This is what we're after.
Yeah,
today.
this is what we're shooting as it flies through the air.
But they're not all the same. This is a American standard. It's 108 millimeters. Ours are 110, a little bit heavier. So
Yeah.
across the world, you'll see slightly different standards.
Right. Yeah. White Flyer does 108 millimeter, like you said. That's what we shoot here in the U.S. So that's considered our standard clay target.
But there is variations.
Yeah.
Like on this first station we're going to shoot.
That's what makes sporting clays great too, is we have a wide variety of different clay targets. They fly through the air a little differently. They have a little different characteristics, and we'll talk about those later as we get through the course.
I mean, just as a basic, you got standard, MIDI,
Yep.
70,
Yep.
mini,
Yep.
50.
Nope. No 50s.
The 50 is a
Mini would be our 60.
okay.
Yeah. So we go 60, 70, 90, 108. Those are all your dome-shaped targets. And then our other specialty targets would include a rabbit and a batu.
We'll check all of those out later, but it's quite confusing. Well, actually,
Yeah.
I know we said there's a lot to talk about. There really is a lot
Yeah,
to talk about.
it's a pretty big gamut of clay targets, and they all, like I said, they have very different characteristics, so they fly differently. So it can be a little intimidating, but we'll talk everybody through it.
All right, should we get in and shoot the first station?
Let's do it.
We would call that a stand.
Yes. The station or the peg. Yep, in sporting clays, we would say the station. So
That's the place you shoot from.
exactly.
Just so you know. Let's go. First things first, safety. Safety is paramount. We are using guns. And
Yes.
anyone who's ever shot a shotgun into the ground 10 feet from them, pretty
Yeah,
powerful
it's a
thing.
moment you won't forget. First thing, basic safety is eyes and ears. Every gun club, that's a requirement. You've got to have eyes and ears protecting you from fine debris, whatever may be going through there.
And you don't need to be spending a lot of money.
No.
Just some.
I have a lot of beginners that come out that have their favorite sunglasses. You can wear those as long as there's eye protection and some sort of ear protection. Today I've got my handy dandy foamies.
Yeah. Anything is better than nothing.
Yeah.
Tinnitus is no joke.
Yeah. So that's the kind of the first safety rule. As we talked about earlier, this is a station. So when we shoot sporting clays, this is where you're going to be shooting from. Only one person shooting at a time, and you'll be in your shooting position. Typically, that's at the front of the box. Most shooting positions have some sort of a railing. So whoever's in the shooting position, you want to make sure that your gun or your muzzle is over the railing and between your two posts facing out towards the field in a safe direction. You don't want to be loading the gun, mounting the gun, doing anything else unless you are standing in this shooting position.
And we've got over and under and a semi-auto with us today, and the rules for those are both slightly different, right?
Yes, so your over-unders, the action breaks open, and that would be a safe carrying position or a safe position. Everybody knows that the gun's unloaded and it can't be fired. With your semi-automatics, we're slightly different because we can't break the action open, but you can open the action in the receiver and the bolt. Okay, so this would be a closed position. We don't want that. People don't know if it's loaded, and when you're walking around, that's unsafe. We want to make sure the action is always open and out. With semi-automatics, you want to carry it with 2 hands, action open and out.
And the barrels are always
Pointed up.
report pair.
Yeah. So on sporting clays, at each station, you're going to have a menu, okay? And that menu is going to designate how the pair should be shot. Typically, we have 2 types of pairs that we throw on sporting clays. One is a report pair, and one is a true pair.
A sim pair.
Sim pair, yes. Slight change in the lingo. So the report pair would be where the shooter calls pull for the first target. Your trapper is going to throw that first target into the air. And when you fire at that first shot, the trapper is going to throw the second target on report of the gun. So when they hear the bang of the gun, they're going to throw that second target in the air. Yep. So your second target will not be released until you fire at your first one.
There is no rush.
No. Yes. Slow and smooth. Smooth is fast. You always have more time than you think. And then the other pair would be our true pair or sim pair. And when you call pull, the trapper is going to fire both machines at the same time.
Simultaneously.
Yes.
Sim is short for simultaneous.
And in sporting clays, you always get to see the pair before you shoot it. We're not just wandering out here and kind of guessing where everything's coming from.
NSCA rules is 2 show pairs.
Yes, we do that in the NSCA. It can vary depending on what country you're in or what event you're in, but for the NSCA registered events, you always get to see 2 show pairs.
I believe in England it's 1 for report and 2 for true.
Okay.
Could be wrong. Probably cut that out.
Yeah, and typically, in a registered event, you have quite a lot of people on the course. So the chances of you actually getting to see the pair before your squad gets up to the stand and gets to shoot are pretty high. That doesn't always happen. But
It's real handy to watch someone else
It
have a go
is.
at a station before
Yeah,
you start.
absolutely.
Walking up and not knowing and being the first shooter and only seeing 2, there's some variables there, right?
Right. Yeah, and people like to look at their view pairs a little differently. Most people will, if, for example, this is a report pair, they'll call for the first bird. They'll say bang when they feel like where they want to shoot the bird, and then the trapper will throw the second one. You can look at them, individually. It's up to the shooter.
Yeah. Everyone has their own way.
Yeah. Yeah, and in sporting clays, what's also important to remember is we only get to look at those view pairs once. So the shooter going first is going to determine the trapper pulling the pair and viewing it. So everybody kind of needs to huddle around and.
Etiquette-wise, you wait until your entire team's there before you see the show pairs.
Yes, that's important. Yeah, because not each shooter gets to view the pair. We only get to view it once as a group. So we, like you said, etiquette-wise, make sure everybody's up at the station, everybody's paying attention and looking, so that they can all see the pair before it's shot.
You can always look at the traps and they'll give you a good indication of where they're going to go, right? So you
Yeah,
can have some assumptions.
Yeah, kind of the direction that it's facing. This trap, you can see that it's kind of pointed up, so you know that target's going to clear the tree line. And then your other trap is in the trees over there. You don't always get to see the trap, but if you can, yeah, it gives you a little bit of idea of where it's going.
All right, let's see them then. So that's somewhere high. Boom. Bang. Bang.
Good.
Cool. And the hand makes you a better shooter.
Oh, absolutely.
No, I don't really know what it does.
Again, it looks cooler. It gives you better concentration, more focus. Yeah.
It's like a simulating
especially
gun.
when you haven't seen the pair before. It gives you a really good idea of where you're going.
I always thought that it's like a parallel line as well, so it kind of helps you kind of grid out what that target's doing.
Yeah. And truthfully, that is what people are doing when they put their hand up. They're getting an idea of where they want to place the muzzle of their gun so that they can get a good hold point and still be in time with the bird. They're kind of planning out their approach to the target, and they're using their hand as a reference point. Well, that's in front.
Oh.
Well, good.
Straightened it. Beautiful.
Not bad, not bad.
Etiquette-wise, silence is preferred, one presumes.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to be respectful of the shooter in the box. You want to make sure that everyone can hear the trapper as they call out the pairs as you're shooting. But sporting clays is definitely a social event. So we want people to be enjoying. You wanna be able to conversate with your squad mates. So it's definitely
Squad specific, I guess, right? Some
Yeah.
people will enjoy energy. I like it when people are.
Yeah, I
having a
mean,
good
to
go.
each is their own. That's the great thing about shooting. You know, you can have a wide variety of people on the same squad and everybody enjoy it. So communication is not forbidden. It's definitely welcomed. We want to be social. You just want to be polite of the shooter while they're in the box. You don't want to be too loud or talking directly behind them and making a lot of noise.
The second target wasn't in the air because it was a rabbit clay.
Yeah, so one of our specialty targets. Our rabbit targets are really intriguing. They're very entertaining, especially for people who haven't been out on the sporting clays course much. A rabbit target is actually designed to roll across the ground. It's very thick, as you can see. They make it real thick so that it doesn't break on impact on the ground. And they can throw them fast, slow, any degree in between. Sometimes they'll hop along as they move across the ground. Sometimes they'll stay really flat. So it's a very unpredictable target, which definitely adds to entertainment value. But it's very challenging. It can be a challenging target to shoot.
Yeah, most things in sporting clays are in this bracket, right?
Yeah.
Usually rabbits are below your eye line.
Yes.
Quite significantly.
Exactly, on the ground. So again, one of our specialty targets, we like to approach a rabbit just a little bit differently. Rabbit targets, again, they're very thick, they're very heavy. Every time that rabbit target touches the ground, it starts to slow down. So we want to make sure we take our time on rabbits, get that muzzle slowed down. We actually like to work from the back side of a rabbit instead of the front side because it's unpredictable.
Before we move on to the next stand, let's have a quick look at the equipment. Desi is shooting an A400 semi-automatic, and this is an over and under shotgun. This is what you're going to most commonly see on a sporting clays course. I'm going to run you through some of the features of what makes one good, what to look out for, and a little bit of the terminology just to help you along. This stuff's going to be pretty basic, but here's the absolute fundamentals. This is the stock. This is the bit you hold with your right hand, or left hand if you're left-handed. You've got a grip, you've got the stock. This is called the comb, and this is called the butt. Gun fit is probably a word you'll hear very quickly, and it is vitally important. Everybody is physically very different in size. You look at me and Desi, me and Zach, as we'll bump into later. We're all different sizes and shapes. What you need is this gun to be comfortable for you. That's the essence of gun fit, to be comfortable for you and to get your eye straight down the rib. Being taller, I put 2 spaces in the back to increase the length of pull. Length of pull is this measurement from the back of the butt to the front of the trigger. If we're getting technical about gun fit, you can then worry about the distance from the grip to the trigger and actually getting your hand comfortable. Again, kind of vital, but these are the next steps on the shooting journey. This gun is fitted with an adjustable comb. An adjustable comb is a comb that you can move up, down, left or right. You can even change the pitch angle or the twist on the cast. That's about aligning your eye with the rib. If a gun doesn't fit, you're not going to shoot it that well. You can always force your face into the right position, and I shoot a lot of guns that don't fit as part of TGS and shooting different guns, reviewing different guns, so I'm pretty good at manipulating myself around a gun. But in order to shoot naturally and comfortably, you need this gun to fit. Otherwise you can get excessive recoil and inconsistent results. The vast majority of over and under shotguns are opened with a top lever. It's pushed across to the side and the gun will break open. As we've already said, this is a safe gun and how you should be carrying it at all times. You can carry it in a variety of ways, under your arm, over your shoulder, just as long as it's safe and secure. You don't want to drop this on the floor. Firstly, they're expensive and you don't want to be damaging your nice new gun. But mostly, safety. Make sure the muzzles are pointed somewhere safe, even when it's broken. You don't want to walk around like this. I'm going to walk around with it either cocked somewhere towards the floor or somewhere towards the sky. The choice is yours. Loading one of these is very simple. You just put a shell in the top and a shell in the bottom. Once the gun is closed, it's got a safety catch here. On hunting guns, this will be automatic to set back. On most sporting guns, people keep it off at all times because in sporting, the gun being broken is the denominator of it being safe. On the top of the safety catch here, you have a selector. On this one, it's a red dot for the bottom and a red dot for the top, and that's top or bottom barrel first. Generally, in sporting clays, you shoot bottom barrel first. The reason for this is recoil. The bottom barrel will provide less muzzle flip because the line of recoil comes more linearly through the gun. The top barrel will put a little bit more pressure for muzzle flip. It's minimal, but in a game where one clay can win it or lose it, these little vital hacks can help a lot. The middle part of the gun is called the action. In the back of here, inside this woodwork, is where the working parts are. You've got hammers and springs that drive 2 pins forward to make the cartridges go bang when it hits the primer. The part on the front is called the forend. You hold that with your left hand, or right hand if you're left-handed. They come in all shapes and styles. Like all guns come in many shapes and styles. Inherently, you'll find one that you like. Your first gun should always just be something middle of the road, comfortable, nothing too extreme, and obviously, preferably something that fits you that you can shoot relatively well out of the box. These things that stick out are called the ejectors. When you open the gun, it will automatically kick those shells out. In sporting clays, you'll have a bin in front of you. Put your hand over it, catch them, put them in the bin, or eject them on the floor and pick them up after. Again, the choice is yours. I've got a shot cam on at the moment, and so the balance isn't going to be what the gun would usually be. What you're looking for is it to balance somewhere around this hinge pin here. But as long as the weight is sort of between the hands, that's going to give you good, consistent handling. You don't want a gun that's far too front heavy or far too rear heavy. Somewhere in the middle is absolutely perfect. At the front of your gun, you have chokes. What these do are control the way your pattern will spread. When you fire a shotgun shell, lots of pellets come out the end. Hundreds of pellets come out the end. What the choke does is constrict the pattern, whether that's going to spread the pellets out or tighten them up. Generally speaking, for closer targets, obviously you want more pattern. For further targets, you want a tighter pattern to be able to put more pellets on your target to guarantee a break, while also giving yourself the best chance of success. Most shooters of any kind of quality will recommend putting something in the middle in there and sticking with it, certainly to start out. A little bit more open choke for closer targets doesn't hurt, but what a half choke or a 3/4 choke will do, I mean, it'll break pretty much any clay on a clay's course. The final note is that in the front of a rib here is usually a bead sight, and sometimes you get one in the middle. As you can see, I've taken mine out. There are multiple options with ribs and beads, thicker, thinner, some with tram lines, big beads, little beads, orange beads, white beads. Everybody has a preference. I prefer to have none, but I know a lot of people who prefer to have one. It's an infinitely complex thing, right? What kind of gun you like, how you set it up is completely personal. The most important thing is actually getting something that's going to be good and reliable. I mean, that's what you want, right? A gun that's going to get you around 100 clays without breaking down. The end. Let's go shoot some clays. When you're approaching a station, right, you automatically see its report pair, you look at the traps. What's next?
So like you said, we can kind of get an idea of, the direction of the traps. And once the whole squad gets up there and everybody's ready to view the pairs, we're going to take a look at them. And we're going to try and decide how we want to approach the birds.
When you say approach, we're talking about different methods, right?
Yeah. What techniques, how we want to acquire that lead, how we want to get to that finished product when we pull the trigger.
Could you run us through the very basics of that?
Yeah, so as a beginner, right, you don't have a lot of target inventory, a lot of experience. So perceived lead on how much lead a target takes, we're trying to build that as we get more experience, as we shoot more. So reading targets would be one of the first steps that help you kind of categorize those targets into different areas where you are deciding what approach you want to take.
Lead, the forward allowance, is you throwing your shot to intercept the target.
Yes, we're trying to get that shot out in front of the target and the target runs into that line of pellets.
Hopefully.
Yeah, so when you read targets, typically I like to give beginners 3 categories, okay? You have little angle and speed are your 2 big determining factors when reading a bird. So your first angle would be straight, a straightaway target or a target coming straight in at you. That would be very minimal angle, okay? Those targets we kind of group together.
Usually called like TL or trap targets.
Trap targets, yep. And and again, you'll have a pair of incomers. Then your next category would be your quartering category. That's everything that's between straight and 90 degrees going slightly away from you. So you can kind of categorize that as a quartering category. And then you have your crossing category. Okay, 90 degrees to the shooter, that's when you're pulling the trigger, that bird is crossing the field that you're shooting in. So those are kind of 3 basic categories that I like to give people to start to, build that target inventory.
And what is your approach to each of those? Presumably each one has a go-to.
Yeah, so your first category, that straight angle, obviously there's not a lot of angle on the bird, so your forward allowance or your lead is not going to be very big. That's the type of target that I'm going to work really close from. I'm going to be working from maybe the back edge or just on the front edge. You're going to have...
By that you're meaning there's the target, you're inserting the gun on the back edge as opposed to a long way behind.
Yes, yes. Obviously it depends on how much time you have to shoot that target, but you want to be working, matching the speed of the target really close to that bird. Again, maybe the back edge or the front edge. We don't want to start with a lot of space, and we don't want to be moving the gun very fast because there's very little angle, okay? Your quartering category next, that kind of starts to depend on speed. I personally like to work closer to those quartering birds given time. You can feel the speed of the bird better. You get a little bit more confidence that you're controlling it. We're working from more of the front side on deeper quartering shots and working from the back side on shallower quartering shots. So again, as we...
You say working from the front side, that is starting your gun on the front edge and then pulling the gun to create space.
Yes, you're going to be creating that space. Again, that depends on the situation, given time and speed of the bird, but we're going to be working from that nose and starting to create that space, okay? Then your third category would be that crossing category. Again, depending on time and speed, but we always want to be starting from the front side of that crossing bird.
We're not letting it get out in front and having to chase.
Yeah, very rarely, or we don't want to be trying to chase that bird or come through. What that does is it causes a little too much gun speed. It causes a little bit more panic in the shot. We want to be working from the nose. And then as we add speed to that target, we want to start to increase that space. And we'll start working out in front of the bird and then maybe creating space or holding space. So those three categories, as you increase the angle and the speed, require more lead. So we're also going to increase that insertion point where we control the bird from. Let's take a look. Pull. Bang. Bang. All right, first thing that pops out to me on this pair is the angle. Both targets are crossing. They're moving left to right across the field, 90 degrees. The second thing that I'm going to try and pick out is the speed of the bird. So,
very different between A and B.
Yes, absolutely. They are both the same angle, but our speeds are varying drastically. Our first target is much slower than our second, okay? So angle and speed are determining lead. Our lead is going to be much less on our first bird than it is on our second, even though the angle is the same. So that speed accounts for that lead as well. So I'm looking at angle, I'm looking at speed, and then on my second view pair, I'm generally trying to determine where I feel like I want to shoot the bird, where I want to start with my hold point, where I'm going to look. Bang. Bang. Yeah, towards the second half of the flight path, both birds kind of show you a little bit more profile, the sun's shining on them, so that's a real good spot that I feel like I'm going to try and shoot those birds.
To take a quick step back there.
Yeah.
Hold point and where you're going to look. What does that actually mean?
So your hold point would be where you're going to start your muzzle when you call pull. Okay, that's the initial position that you're going to be in when the bird flies through the air, and you start to make that initiation to your insertion point. Generally speaking, I like all of my hold points to be slightly under the line of the bird so that I can see the bird come out a little bit better. And I want to be in a position where I can get to that edge or that insertion point relatively in time with the bird. If I'm going to start in front of the bird, I don't want to hold at the trap. If I'm going to start behind the bird, I don't want to hold halfway across the field. Okay, so you want that hold point to be in line with where you feel like you're going to try and match the speed of the bird from.
Okay.
So this
it's
first...
personal again, right?
Yeah, it's definitely personal, and it's a learned thing throughout experience. For example, this first bird, it's fairly slow. I'm going to work close, so I will probably actually hold in closer to the trap. The second bird is very fast and is going to take some lead. So I don't want to come back and hold at the trap, otherwise I'd be chasing that bird all the way across the field. I'm going to hold out further. So that's your hold point. Your visual hold point is what some people call is that soft focus area that you want to be looking for the bird.
Looking back left or right across the gun, somewhere between the gun and the trap.
Yeah. For here at Forest City, for example, we've got a lot of trees in the background. Sometimes they'll throw a black target that's difficult to see through the trees. So I'm not going to look there. I would look up in the sky. Both of these are orange, so we can look to the left of our hold point in between the trap and where our gun's at. Pull.
Do you read the brakes as well?
Yes, as an experienced shooter, I am reading the brakes. Obviously, if I'm chipping that front side of the bird, I know that I'm probably working towards a little too much gun speed or a little too big of an insertion point. Likewise on the back. I know that when I'm hitting the center of the target, my gun speed was really good. My visual hard focus was really good. Everything was working together.
Just bring out more of the same.
Yeah. But I can say, with that being said, if you're breaking the bird, don't change anything. Obviously, it's working. So a chip is the same on paper as the center of the target. If you're breaking that front side, just make sure you keep repeating that move.
Front side, yeah.
They don't grade in sporting clays. It's either a hit or a miss.
Now, breaking clays is one thing, but doing it consistently, that's a different beast entirely. So before we convince ourselves it's all down to luck, gear and practice, we're heading over to have a word with Zach Kienbaum, a man who knows better than most that what's between your ears matters just as much as what's in your hands.
Zach, it's fair to say you're a pretty successful sporting clays shooter.
Fairly successful, I'd say.
When you go to a round of sporting clays, how do you manage from station 1 to station 12, station 15? Like, what is the process?
The process is to enjoy yourself, really. It depends on your personality. I'm a big proponent of, enjoying your squad, really talking to everybody. I shoot my best when I'm loose, when I'm just kind of having fun. Trust me, there's been plenty of events where I'm in my own head, I'm really nervous, I'm just anxious about everything, and I'm the quiet guy in the cart, not talking to anybody.
I guess you just have to be respectful of how people are enjoying
correct.
it. Correct.
And I don't think that my way is necessarily the best for everybody, but you've got to know yourself, right? And I think it's important on a round of sporting clays, because we're going to be out here in a competitive setting. You might be out there 3 hours.
Okay.
A recreational round is going to be much less than that, but it's an ebb and flow. It's you got to concentrate, be in the cage, be ready to shoot. And when you get out of said cage, I think it's really important to kind of come off that intensity and enjoy yourself, talk to your friends, talk to your other squad mates, and just enjoy the round.
Preserve the focus for when it matters.
Correct. In other disciplines, skeet and trap, those people they're on the whole time. You're not coming off that field until you're done shooting your 25 targets. Whereas we need to get in the box and shoot 3 or 4 pair, and then we're out. So it's an up and down thing.
And how much memory are you employing? Like, do you remember the stations before, or are you just a hard forgetter, move on?
That is a hilarious question, because one of my best friends, one of the best shooters in the sport, Anthony Matarese, he could tell you every target he's shot at any given station, at what tournament, what year, all the way back for 25 years. I can't remember stations at dinner the night after of the shoot. Gone. Now I can remember presentations and how I'm going to approach them, but I forget. So again, it's very personal.
You and Anthony couldn't be two more different.
We're
shooters
very
in your
different
approach and your
people,
style,
but
both successful.
Correct.
I think we've discussed previously. There's many ways to skin a cat, and even just your mental approach to how you enjoy the sport.
Right. It's all different. Experience. You got to learn yourself, learn how you react to certain situations.
But that might take some hard honesty.
But I personally, Zachary Kienbaum, I'm about enjoying the round and enjoying the people.
I like it when you refer to yourself in the third person. That should be a new thing for you, right?
That's funny.
Thank you for today, Desi.
Yeah, it was a great time.
I'd like to ask, I guess, the final question, which is, this sport is accessible to anybody, but there is clearly a physical element to it. How important is that?
I mean, I think the physical element is, your ability to execute a lot of the things that we're trying to learn in shooting. Manhandling the gun, absorbing recoil, stamina, things like that. So all of that plays a factor into that physical element. Obviously, the more you shoot and the more experience you get, the more you build up that stamina and that ability to manipulate and move the gun the way that you want. So when you're, first starting out, I think it's important to take it easy on yourself, not be so hard. It's a long road, it's a learning process, and it'll get there.
How long is the road?
Well, as long as you want it to be, right? Everybody has different goals. So, for for myself as a, elite competitor at the top of the game, that road really never ends. It's a continual learning process forever. I'm always trying to get better at everything that I do. Whether that be, for some people making a certain class or winning a certain event, that's more of a short-term goal, and that road can be a little bit shorter. But it's enjoying the journey and setting your own goals and your own expectations and trying to reach that.
That's awesome. From my personal perspective, my goal is always just to have fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay, right?
That's what we're out here to do. Whether you're competing, it's recreational, whether you want to win or you're just out here to participate, it's about having fun, and that's the beauty of the sport.
Our next stand is going to be this trap bird, so minimal movement again, and one of these.
The little guys, yep. So we have a standard and our 70 millimeter. You can get reference on that. It is extremely small.
It looks a very long way
Yes.
away.
So for the human eye, when we see small, we equate it with distance. We equate it with far. The larger the object, the closer we feel like it is, and the smaller the object, the further away we feel like it is.
Especially when we shoot, 90% standard clay targets.
Yeah. This is what you see the most.
This is our visual reference versus the gun and moves, right?
Yeah,
So this
absolutely.
is a proper trip up.
Yeah, absolutely. The target setters are setting those out there, to essentially kind of trick you into thinking the target's maybe faster than it's going or further than it actually is.
I guess, as we've said, experience is key. The more 70s, minis, middies you shoot, the more you know how to handle them.
Yeah, and the more you shoot them, the more confidence you have, so it's not quite as intimidating when you walk up and see one.
Are you approaching this exactly the same style-wise as you would with a standard? You're just visually making sure you understand not to give it a big packet of lead because it's not 100 meters away.
Yes.
It's 40.
Exactly, Johnny. I'm still putting it in those categories, reading the angle and trying to determine the speed. But after I kind of, look at the target and I say, well, it looks like it's going fast, I have to remind myself it is a 70. It's not going quite as fast as I might think, and then take into account the size and say, you know what, it's not as far as I think. So generally speaking, that lead is going to be a little bit smaller than what maybe I initially anticipated.
How much, complete aside, how much are you referencing your gun versus the target when deciding lead? You're not measuring this, right?
No, it's definitely a feel. I'm, aware of where the gun's at. For most beginner shooters, again, I kind of try to categorize things. It's kind of a small, medium, large thing. Small would be at the bird, just off the front edges, medium, increasing there, and then large would be
detached.
Significant
Into
amount of
a big
space.
space,
Uncomfortable amount of space.
Yeah.
So seeing lead, it's not an exact thing. Obviously, an experienced shooter is going to have a really good idea.
They're going to feel it more.
Yeah, and be a little more, they'll be able to give you a little more precise information on that. So is it, a beginner versus an intermediate? But that lead is, again, you're aware of it. It's not an exact thing. This isn't a science. Shotgun shooting is a little bit art, right? It's kind of science and art put together. So there's a feel factor to it, but there's also an awareness and visual factor to it.
Shall we try?
Because the target's so small, we just need one golden BB for that guy.
It does feel like you need the golden pellet.
It's
You need a lucky
tiny.
pellet more than
Yeah,
ever.
yeah.
If you look at it just on the face of that, your surface area is significantly smaller.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hit them.
Yeah.
I'm
let's
just going
do
to watch. That was really nicely done. I know we just said it would look farther away. It's, what, 40 yards maybe?
Yeah, 35, 40 yards max.
And it is a dot.
It is extremely small, especially when you get the gun and the muzzle pointed up in the sky. I mean, the target is literally smaller than the bead on the end of my gun.
It is incredible that, firstly, that you broke them all. Not that that's incredible because you're quite talented, but it just looks so far and you think, how does a pattern hold so well to be able to destroy something
That
so
small,
well?
yeah.
Yeah, proper cool. Rules-wise, right, we covered safety early on. And the rule book is long.
Yeah.
What are the important ones?
Obviously safety. That's going to be your first major category. Abiding by all the safety rules. Eyes and ears at all times. Muzzle pointed in the safe direction. So that's the rule book for registered and, the rules for
Life.
the gun club.
Yeah.
Yeah. Safety would be the major part of that. In terms of rules for shooting, I think that would be more of order of operation, making sure the pairs are shot correctly, report pair versus true pair, making sure, you're shooting the correct ammo. In the NSCA sporting clays, we do have requirements on size of ammo, making sure you're shooting target loads, not hunting loads. In FETASC, there's a 1 ounce requirement, so you can't shoot anything higher than that.
We've got a 1 ounce requirement, pretty much blanket in Europe for sporting disciplines.
Yeah, so safety, equipment, and then operating. I think those are some of the rules that you just basically need to pay attention to at first, especially as a beginner, and make sure you're following all of those.
Other than that, I think most refs are pretty good, right?
Yeah. In my opinion, the referee's out on the course to help the shooter. They're help the competitors to get through the course more smoothly. They're there to be your supporter, not your adversary. Okay, so shooting community is great and referees are great. When you have questions, go ahead and ask them. There's nothing wrong with that.
They've seen a lot of clays break.
Yes.
They've seen every single thing and they can answer every question. Their job is to know the rule book inside
Exactly.
out, right?
Yeah, so that's what they're there for, and you want to utilize that if you're unsure, rather than walking in and kind of just going by the seat of your pants and saying, well, I'm not sure if this is following the rules or not. Just go ahead and ask straight up front. But yeah, a good referee is going to be there to help support you. They're really trying to pay attention and look for every piece of, chip or small, a piece of chip that you break off of a target. They want to see you succeed. So that's why they're there. Probably one of the most common rules I see mishandled is in the event of a malfunction or a no bird. Both, can happen at the same time. But in the event of a malfunction, really the shooter needs to pause, not open their gun, and not do anything. So the referee can check the gun to make sure that it's one of two things, either a shooter error or a true malfunction. In the event that the shooter forgot to put on their safety, or they trapped the trigger and the gun didn't go off, they weren't able to shoot that second shot, that is a shooter error, and that is a lost target. If the gun truly malfunctioned, whether the shell didn't cycle in an automatic or the hammer dropped and the shell just didn't go off, that would be a malfunction, which would be marked on the card, and the pair is reshot.
The reason for the safety thing, right, is you keep it close and downrange, because in the event of it being a slow primer or a slow trigger release, like say if you pull the sear, you've not cleaned your gun, it's rusted, the hammer stays and then breaks, you don't want the gun going off as you've taken out your shoulder if you're not controlling it.
Exactly.
You don't want to be opening it up and having a shell just pop and go on.
Right. Yeah, it's for your safety, it's for everybody else's safety. So again, on rules, safety being the most important. And then in the event of malfunction, the referee is there to make sure they check that and everything goes according to plan.
I think with registered targets in any country, those refs are great. And a lot of people are scared to go and shoot registered competitions because your score's on paper, guaranteed, it's publicized.
Yeah.
They're actually where you probably should start thinking about it and discussing it now, because you've got a whole bunch of guides and you're in a whole community doing it exactly right.
Yeah, they have a lot of experience seeing this. That's what they do all day, is they literally watch people shoot. And we kind of think of referees as these white and black striped,
scary,
scary
whistle
people,
blowing,
and they're trying to find everything wrong that you're doing. No, they're really there to help you and guide you, make sure everybody's safe, make sure everybody's having a good time, and make sure you're the most successful that you can be on the course.
Station 5 is our first chandelle, Batu chandelle.
Yeah, Batu, we would call that. And a Batu is one of our specialty targets that we've got here.
They are thin.
Yes,
which means they must
wafer-like.
break easier, right?
Yes, so you don't have to put as many pellets on a Batu as you would maybe a standard or a rabbit, especially because it's so thin. There's a couple characteristics about a Batu that are definitely just for this target. Because it's so thin, it cuts through the air really well. So the speed on this Batu can really launch it and get it moving through the air. One of the other characteristics is the way the machine throws this target is it actually starts flat on the plate, and whether they throw it right side up or upside down, as the target leaves the plate and starts flying through the air, it will actually rotate sideways.
Because it doesn't have that dome to catch the air,
yes.
Right? So it's gonna...
Yeah, so the physics of it, it's gonna force it to turn one way or the other. If it's upside down, it will turn backwards, and if it's right side up, it will turn forwards.
And it's why they can be quite difficult, because the turn can be unpredictable, and you can't shoot them sideways because
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend shooting it sideways. There's not a lot of opportunity there to break the clay. So yeah, typically you're going to shoot your battues after they've turned.
Yeah.
And target setters can do, actually, they have a big variety with these targets. They can do a lot with them. I've shot a trap battue, starting flat and going away from you.
I've shot driven battues.
Yep, I've shot a driven battue. I've actually shot a battue rolling across the ground, like a rabbit target.
Were there not like a lot of no birds with that?
Well, it depends on the ground. The ground, if
That's
it's soft enough and you've got good enough grass, yeah, it's actually quite bouncy. So it made a really good target. So this is a really versatile target. It's one of my favorites, actually.
Shall we shoot it?
We shall.
I guess with that unpredictable turn, really paying attention to the whole point and those things is probably more important with one of these.
Yeah, so generally when they're throwing a battue, the initial stages of it as it's flying through the air are going to be difficult to pick up because it's very flat. So there's not a lot to see in the beginning. So you want to make sure your whole point is beyond that area so that you're not trying to search for the target and you're not chasing it as it turns over.
That could be said for pretty much every target, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
This one's even harder to see.
Yeah, you want to set that whole point up, again, where you want to try and control the bird from. And because that battue has that characteristic to roll, you want to make sure that that's towards the bottom line of the target or just underneath that line of the target. So yeah, your whole point definitely needs to be picked out deliberately on a battue.
You got your hundreds of pellets flying through the air, and you got a choke in the end to sort of change them. Different cartridges are different. I'd always recommend for someone to not buy the cheapest, to buy somewhere in the middle to start because it is better.
Yeah, if you're in a competition event, you want to have quality ammo.
And I think here's a pretty good reason why people should care about cartridge and choke selection.
Yes, yeah, these are actually these middies that we're shooting out here on the stand. They're not like a rabbit in the terms that they're not super dense. So the fact that there's 2 holes in this means that we either don't have a very good pattern, or our pattern isn't tight enough, or we've got some flyers in our ammo.
So this is why. Do you pattern plate your gun? I presume you did once and that's enough.
Yeah, I did once upon a time, just to make sure gun fit and everything was good. You can pattern chokes. Patterning chokes really only gives you 2 dimensions. It doesn't give you the full story of it. So I'm not a hard believer in a pattern board, but you definitely want to make sure that your chokes are measuring accurately to what they're marked and that you're applying them in the proper places.
Yeah, right. And there's a lot of stuff to do with barrel technology as well, like Steel-In versus Steel-In Pro.
Yep.
With the same choke and the same cartridge will produce 2 different results.
Yeah.
And as much as a pattern plate only gives you a 2D representation, short of hiring a very expensive slow motion camera, it's literally the best we can do.
The only thing you could do.
Short of going and pounding a load of clays and the proof being in the pudding that, yeah, I broke that clay at 70 yards and I broke one at 10, ergo, and probably got the right setup.
Right.
What choke do you use?
I actually shoot an off constriction. It's a 17,000. So it's between a light modified, which is 15, and a modified, which is 20.
Like a heavy 3/8.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't necessarily pick that choke because of the off constriction. I do like that range. I'm a big believer in light modified. I think that's a really middle of the ground choke.
A lot of world-class shooters agree that, certainly with over and under, a pair of 3/8 light mods or a pair of mods will break every target you'll see on the course.
It'll cover the whole gamut of clay target presentations that you're going to get. I picked my choke more out of weight. Because I'm shooting an automatic, I want a little bit more weight out at the end of the gun, so I picked a choke that was as heavy as I could find. And then I just kind of went with a constriction from there. But yeah, light modified is a really good middle ground choke. It'll cover everything you need. And like you said, it's a recipe is kind of the way I think about it. Depending on your bore, Steel-In versus Steel-In Pro versus Steel-In Plus, and then your choke selection and your ammo selection as well. It's a combination of all of those that are going to give you something quality. Sometimes that's trial and error and finding what you like, what you're confident in, and just finding that magic recipe that will get you exactly what you're looking for.
And certainly with shells, recoil being a big factor as well.
Yeah.
Some people quite like a snappy cartridge.
Yeah.
I am not one of them.
No, recoil is not my friend.
Lowest possible.
Yeah.
An auto with Steel-In Pro barrels and 3/4 ounce shells would be like my ideal or a 28 gauge.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone's different. Pick what you like. Make sure it actually works. Don't just go, I like the packet of that and that's a cool looking choke, and go and hope that it's all coming together, I guess would be
In terms of beginners or intermediates, typically when you first start, you're going to shoot more of an open choke, more in the IC range, just because of the set of targets you're shooting isn't necessarily, 55 yards out on edge. You're not shooting these extreme targets when you're first starting. So those more open chokes can be a little more forgiving, and that's kind of just a general statement. But as you progress in your shooting career, a lot of, advanced and elite shooters tend to shoot a little tighter chokes. Some of that is obviously having confidence in that recipe and your equipment and what you're using. It can give you a little more information on a break. If I'm on the front edge of the bird, I know I'm working towards, getting too far in front or the back, vice versa. When you hit the middle of the target, to me, it gives me a lot of confidence because my entire pattern really completely hits that bird, rips it apart. And what that does for me, it's not that I get more points for hitting it harder. It just gives me more confidence that my move and my approach are correct, that I'm executing what I'm trying to do with the target.
Also, in national grade competitions, nationals, you'll see this thrown at 60 yards.
Yeah.
And 2 pellets could well break it, but it's not spinning that fast. What if
No.
they don't? 4 pellets is better than 2 pellets.
Yes, yeah, and then that gets into kind of the energy, conversation with how much energy you have out at the target. A target that doesn't have a lot of speed on it is not spinning very fast. So that centrifugal force isn't playing in our favor to pull that target apart. So sometimes you can go with more energy in a 7.5, and sometimes you can go with a tighter choke that really holds that pattern together. To each his own on that, but you want to make sure you get as many as you can on that clay target.
Yeah, well, also the caveat being with also not limiting yourself with a very, very tight pattern.
This
because
is true.
a bigger pattern
Can't
means more chance.
Yeah, it can be more forgiving.
Out to a certain distance.
Yeah, in my own personal shooting, in my mind, I'm not going to miss a target because I was over choked, and this is in my own personal shooting. I need to make sure that I'm executing my game plan to it's the nth degree exactly what I want to do. But I could potentially miss that really far edgy target, and it could slip through my pattern. It could not be enough pellets in a tight enough area.
Yeah, and right, just by basic physics, if a target's like that and a pellet's coming in like that, the chance of it going through it are minimal, the chance of it bouncing off are high.
Yes.
4 pellets crush into it,
Yeah.
much better chance of a kill.
Yeah, so there's not hard rules on chokes and ammo. Again, it's kind of that recipe. It's the presentation that you're looking at. In sporting clays, a lot of people actually change chokes. You can change chokes based on station to station as you go and as you see the presentations. I stick with one choke. It just is one less variable for me to think about and worry about. I've got confidence in it, it's out of my mind, and I can focus on the task at hand.
I rarely change chokes, but when something's really close, I like to put a super cylinder in. Not because I couldn't hit it with that, but because it's going to make me really not make a stupid move. And that for me is more of a mental hack.
Yeah.
When the physical one probably doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, I think sometimes changing that equipment, like you said, it gives you more confidence to execute. So
part of the pre-shot routine, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same way. A really close rabbit for me is something that I don't want to have any doubt on, so I really open that choke up.
Get the hacksaw out.
Yep.
Go for it.
Exactly.
Final note, and I know we've just discussed this for 5 minutes, is that mostly it's not that consequential versus talent and good moves.
No, yeah.
Changing your choke every station and having 17 different types of shells in your bag and pattern plating endlessly for the perfect solution isn't going to make you put the gun in the right place every time.
Exactly. At the end of the day, we have to place the shot in the correct place in order to break the bird.
I've shot a lot of clouds with perfect patterns.
Yep, and taking the energy and effort you need to execute that is plenty of work in and of itself. We don't need to add to that list of things to do about changing chokes and if I have the right one and right ammo, like you said. Having all of this equipment adds to the confusion a little bit. So keeping to the task at hand, making sure you're looking at the bird the way you need to, making sure you're executing the way you need to, and we're splitting hairs when it comes to those, choke changes. And
I think everything we've discussed today could be summed up with the old KISS analogy. Keep it simple, stupid.
And
it's not that complicated. It's a very complicated sport, obviously.
Yeah.
But the basics of it, the fundamentals are simple and need to be followed.
Yep.
All the little pieces on top are what will create world champions. but there's 80% that is very
Yeah,
simple.
that's not the meat of the recipe, as you would say. That's the icing on the cake at the top. So yeah, making sure you got your basics down and you're confident in what you have and you got a good recipe for yourself, and then just sticking with that.
All right, let's crush one of these half-size targets.
Yeah, the little guys.
So there you have it. The road to that all-important 80% is paved with solid technique, smart decisions, and good, honest practice.
Oh, Johnny.
That's your cake, and the final 20%, that's the hardest part to attain, and it's what turns a good round into a great one. And there's plenty of videos on this channel about that 20%. Guys, a massive thanks to Desi Edmunds for sharing her knowledge and making it all look far too easy. And remember, don't overlook these fundamentals, and don't be afraid to step into the competitive world of sporting clays.
Thank you for watching TGS Outdoors. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. The channel would not be possible without the support of our amazing sponsors who keep videos coming to you week after week. If you really enjoy the channel and want to support it yourself, please consider becoming a member. Channel members get a bit of extra content.
Today we're going to be talking about good shooting advice.
But mostly, you just keep us going, and we love the support. There's a great community goes on behind the scenes. Take care, guys. Goodbye, and we'll see you on the next one.